History remembers him as the silent guardian, the terrifying jackal standing at the threshold of eternity. But the god of death was born from a lie so scandalous it nearly tore the Egyptian pantheon apart. Before he was the judge of souls, he was a mistake, a child conceived in the shadows of a forbidden union that was never meant to happen. You see, Anubis isn't just a deity of the dead. He is the living embodiment of a cosmic accident that forced the gods to rewrite the laws of existence. To understand the jackal, we must unlock 4 sealed doors that guard his legacy. Door number 1, the clandestine betrayal. Door number 2, the architect of immortality. Door number 3, the scales of judgment. And finally, door number 4, the tale of 2 brothers, a story so tragic it redefines the meaning of loyalty. Stay with us, because what lies behind door number 4 changes everything you think you know about the nature of justice. It began in the swirling sands of primordial chaos, where desire eclipsed duty. Nephthys, the goddess of the night and wife of the chaotic god Set, found herself consumed by an obsession not for her husband, but for his brother, the mighty Osiris. The atmosphere of this deception was thick, the air smelling of ozone and ancient dust as the sun dipped below the horizon. Desperate and blinded by infatuation, Nephthys orchestrated a masquerade that would alter history. She didn't just approach Osiris, she transformed herself, molding her divine essence to perfectly mimic the appearance and scent of her sister, Isis. Imagine the tension of that moment. The silence of the bedchamber so loud it hummed, the friction of skin against skin, built on a foundation of absolute deceit. Osiris, the king of gods, was fooled. He lay with Nephthys, believing her to be his wife, and from this stolen night, a child was conceived. But while the city slept, a catastrophe was already ticking beneath their feet. When Isis discovered the truth, the revelation should have shattered the heavens. The betrayal was absolute. Her sister and her husband, united in a clandestine act. Yet instead of the wet tear of flesh and the screams of vengeance one might expect from a scorned goddess, Isis did something incomprehensible. She found the infant Anubis, abandoned and hidden in the marshes by a terrified Nephthys, who feared the wrath of her husband Set. Isis looked upon the bastard son of her husband and saw not a monster, but an innocent. In a twist that defies the brutal logic of ancient myth, she adopted him. She raised the product of her betrayal as her own, forging a bond that would ultimately lead Anubis to become the faithful enforcement behind the throne of Osiris. This is where the boy became the myth. Anubis entered existence cloaked in sleek obsidian fur, a physical manifestation of the afterlife's somber shroud. He was no longer just a child. He was a majestic figure cut from the fabric of night itself. Picture him standing against the burning sunset of the Sahara. His silhouette is sharp, terrifyingly still, with ears poised like vigilant sentinels, catching the faintest whispers of the desert winds. His eyes, described as twin orbs gleaming like the midnight heavens, didn't just see the physical world. They cradled the weight of the cosmos and the secrets veiled within the netherworld. He was the ultimate liminal figure, stationed at the terrifying crossroads between chaos and order, life and death. He wasn't just a passive observer. He was the beckoner, the one who invited mortals to step boldly through the veil. But his role was about to evolve from a mere guardian into the divine conductor of the most high-stakes symphony in the universe, the journey of the human soul. Anubis assumed the solemn duty of guiding departed spirits through the intricate, trap-laden labyrinth of the afterlife. He was the stalwart defender of Ma'at, the cosmic order, ensuring that the delicate balance of existence remained undisturbed by the chaotic forces that sought to unravel it. As the moonlit silence draped the Egyptian landscape, Anubis stood watch over the necropolises, his very presence radiating a terrifying reassurance that the dead were safe from grave robbers and malevolent spirits. But the true test of his power was yet to come, for the first death was approaching, and it would require him to invent a ritual that would preserve the gods forever. But Anubis didn't stumble upon the art of preservation by accident. It was a craft forged in the fires of a family tragedy that shook the foundations of the earth. The mummification process wasn't a mere ritual. It was a desperate counterattack against rot and oblivion, birthed when Isis sought him out for a task that seemed impossible. Osiris, the king, had been ensnared by the nefarious Set, his body not just killed but severed and scattered across the lands in a grotesque display of chaotic triumph. Imagine the smell of the embalming chamber, a pungent mix of natron, cedar oil, and the metallic tang of divine blood. Anubis didn't just wrap a corpse. He orchestrated a profound alchemy of preservation, a marriage of science and spirituality designed to cheat death itself. With hands skilled and eyes unwavering, he guided the embalmers through each sacred step, turning the broken remains of Osiris into the first mummy, an eternal testament to survival. But while the jackal worked to bind the flesh, a shadow was moving across the desert sands, hunting them down. Set was relentless. He didn't just want Osiris dead. He wanted him erased, his soul unmoored and lost to the void. He feared the return of the brother he had murdered, and sought to disrupt the celestial order, plunging the realms into total disarray. This was no longer a silent duty for Anubis. It was open war. The jackal-headed guardian emerged as the fierce defender of the sanctity of the afterlife, constantly challenging Set's authority in battles that echoed through the celestial expanse. Picture the clash, the embodiment of order against the avatar of chaos, a symphony of cosmic forces where Anubis stood undaunted, his spirit becoming a beacon of resistance. He protected the fragile process of resurrection, ensuring that the body of Osiris would remain intact against the malevolent whispers seeking to disturb it. But winning the physical battle was only half the victory. The soul still had to face a trial from which there is no return. Once the physical vessel was secured, Anubis assumed his most terrifying role, the arbiter of righteousness in the hall of truth. This is where the story turns from a war of fists to a war of souls. As the deceased stood at the entrance of the underworld, shivering in the cold winds of the Duat, Anubis guided them toward a judgment that was absolute. The atmosphere in the Hall of Truth is suffocating. 42 judges watch your every move, and the air is heavy with the silence of 1,000 years. The soul must recite the 42 negative confessions, swearing they lived a life of Ma'at. But words are cheap in the face of the ultimate test. Anubis, with eyes discerning as the constellations, would take the heart, the very vessel of the soul's essence, and place it delicately on one side of a golden scale. On the other side rested a single feather. This is the moment where time stops. The scale creaks. If the heart is heavy with sin, it drops, and the soul is fed to Amit, the devourer, resulting in a restless eternity of nothingness. But if it balances, Anubis guides you to paradise. Yet even as he weighed the hearts of millions, Anubis harbored a secret sorrow, a personal tragedy involving his own brother that would test his justice more than any dead soul ever could. Amidst the vastness of Egyptian mythology, there existed a tale that stripped the god of death of his divine armor and exposed him as a vulnerable, flawed man. This wasn't a war against demons or a judgment of souls. It was a domestic nightmare that unfolded in the quiet, sun-drenched fields of the Nile Delta. Anubis, the terrifying judge, had a younger brother named Bata, and their bond was the stuff of legends, a symphony of love where they toiled side by side, cultivating the earth in a rhythm of harmonious existence. Bata wasn't ordinary. He possessed a supernatural gift that allowed him to understand the language of the cattle, sleeping among them and hearing their secrets in the dark. But while the brothers shared a bond tighter than blood, a parasite was growing in Anubis's own home. His wife, a woman whose beauty rivaled the stars, looked at Bata not with sisterly affection, but with a predatory hunger that would soon turn their paradise into a crime scene. The betrayal didn't happen with a shout, but with a whisper. One fateful day, as the brothers sowed seeds, Bata returned to the house alone, and Anubis's wife saw her chance. She ignored his requests for grain until his strong stature caught her eye, and in a moment of reckless lust, she attempted to seduce him. Imagine the heat of the room, the dust motes dancing in the light, and the sudden sickening drop in Bata's stomach. He didn't just reject her, he recoiled with a virtuous fury, telling her that she was like a mother to him, and Anubis like a father, shattering her fantasy with the cold, hard truth of loyalty. But a scorned lover is dangerous. A scorned lover with a secret is lethal. Humiliated and terrified of exposure, she didn't just lie. She staged a horror show. She wounded herself, beating her own skin to mimic an assault, and feigned illness to paint Bata as a monster who had forced himself upon her. When Anubis returned, he didn't see a liar. He saw his battered wife and the evidence of a crime he couldn't forgive. The transformation of Anubis was instantaneous and terrifying. Fueled by a righteous, blinded anger, the god of the dead picked up his spear, his mind clouded by the false tears of the woman he trusted. He became a hunter, stalking his own brother with the intent to kill. But the universe has a way of protecting the innocent. The very cattle Bata cared for whispered a warning to him. Run. As Anubis closed in, ready to spill his brother's blood, the god Ra-Harakti intervened, casting a protective barrier between the hunter and the prey, a vast, watery expanse teeming with crocodiles and monsters. Picture the scene. The two brothers separated by a river of snapping jaws, the air thick with the smell of river mud and imminent death. Across this divide, Bata finally shouted the truth. In a display of desperate sincerity, he revealed the wife's malevolence and, to prove his innocence, performed an act of unthinkable self-mutilation, cutting himself and throwing his flesh to the water's monsters. The truth hit Anubis like a physical blow. He returned home, not as a husband, but as the judge he was born to be, and executed his wife for the poison she had poured between the brothers. Yet the tragedy was far from over, for Bata was about to embark on a journey that would require Anubis to do the impossible: bring the dead back to life. Bata did not just run, he exiled himself to the Valley of Cedars, tearing his own heart from his chest and placing it atop the highest blossom of a cedar tree. A biological impossibility that bound his life to the fragile petals of a flower. He left Anubis with a terrifying ultimatum. If the beer in your cup ever begins to boil, know that my heart has been cut, and I am dead. While Anubis stewed in the guilt of his wife's deception, the gods, pitying Bata's loneliness, sculpted him a new wife, a woman of impossible beauty, woven from the essence of mortals and the divine. But perfection is often a trap. Despite Bata's warnings to stay hidden, the sea carried a lock of her hair to the Pharaoh of Egypt, who, mesmerized by its scent, sent soldiers to hunt her down. In a betrayal that mirrors the first, she didn't just go willingly. She sold her husband out. She told the Pharaoh the secret of the cedar tree. The king's order was swift: cut the tree. As the axe bit into the wood and the blossom fell, Bata dropped dead in the valley, his life severed by the vanity of a king and the treachery of a lover. At that exact moment, miles away, Anubis stared in horror as the drink in his cup began to froth and boil, a violent chemical reaction signaling that his brother was gone. The god of the dead, who ferried millions of souls to the afterlife, now had to fight to bring just one back. For 7 agonizing years, Anubis scoured the Valley of Cedars, searching for a heart no bigger than a fist in a landscape of despair. Imagine the psychological toll. The guardian of the afterlife, unable to find the one soul that mattered. But on the final day, just as he was about to surrender to grief, he found a shriveled berry, the remnant of his brother's heart. Placing it in a bowl of cool water, the berry pulsed. It expanded. It absorbed the liquid life. And as Anubis forced the draught down the throat of the corpse, Bata's chest heaved. He was back. But this wasn't a happy reunion. It was the beginning of a revenge saga so bloody it makes Shakespeare look like a nursery rhyme. Bata didn't return as a man. He shapeshifted into a magnificent bull, a Trojan horse of divine retribution, presented to the Pharaoh and his former wife. When the bull whispered the truth of his identity to the queen, she panicked and ordered it slaughtered. But as the blade sliced the bull's throat, 2 drops of blood hit the earth, instantly sprouting into 2 colossal persea trees. The queen, relentless in her cruelty, ordered the trees cut down to make furniture, thinking she could butcher the truth. She was wrong. A splinter from the falling wood flew into her mouth, swallowed in a moment of chaos, and impregnated her. In a twist of cosmic irony, she gave birth to a son who was none other than Bata reborn. The traitor raised her own executioner. When he came of age, he revealed his identity. The queen was sentenced to death, and Anubis, the silent guardian who had endured betrayal, war, and the loss of his kin, finally ascended the throne. The irony of Anubis is paralyzing. We paint him as the grim reaper, a monster lurking in the shadows of the tomb. But looking closer, Anubis is the only god who never sought power, yet wielded it to save the very people who betrayed him. He is the god of death, who spent 7 years fighting for life. He is the monster who showed more humanity than the beautiful queens and mighty kings. This story forces us to look in the mirror. We often trust the beautiful lie, the perfect wife, the golden pharaoh, while fearing the ugly truth, the jackal in the dark. But when the drink starts boiling and your world falls apart, it's not the beauty that saves you. It's the beast who remained loyal when everyone else left. So here is the choice you must make tonight. In a world full of smiling betrayers, do you strive to be the king who cuts the tree to keep his power, or the jackal who walks through hell to restore a broken bond? Most choose the crown. Few have the guts to be the guardian. If you want to survive the next chapter of history's darkest secrets, you need to be here when we unlock the next tomb. Click that button, because the next story doesn't just judge your soul, it weighs it. The queen thought she had sanitized history by turning the trees into furniture, but biology has a way of remembering what the mind wants to forget. A single splinter, a fragment of the cedar tree imbued with the life essence of Bata, entered her body in a moment of cosmic accident. It didn't fester, it grew. In a twist of fate that is almost Shakespearean in its cruelty, the queen gave birth to a son who was actually the reincarnation of the man she ordered butchered. Imagine the silence in the palace nursery, the mother looking into the eyes of her child and seeing the judgment of her victim staring back. When the boy came of age, the truth exploded. He revealed his identity, unspooling the entire narrative of betrayal to the court and exposing the wickedness of his own mother. The queen, exposed as a traitor to the cosmic order, was sentenced to death. And Anubis, the loyal brother who had traversed hell and high water, who had swallowed his pride and wielded his spear, was finally given his due. He didn't just survive, he ascended, taking the throne of Egypt after the king's demise. The jackal was no longer just a guardian of the dead, he was the ruler of the living, proving that loyalty is the only currency that transcends the grave. But a king never rules alone, and Anubis found his counterpart not in the light of Ra, but in the shadows of the horizon. He formed a celestial partnership with Wepwawet, the wolf-headed deity known as the Opener of the Ways. Together, they became the twin pillars of the afterlife, a duo of jackal and wolf, whose eyes gleamed like cosmic beacons over the sacred necropolises. This wasn't just mythology, it was a psychological anchor for an entire civilization. To the ancient Egyptians, Anubis wasn't a nightmare to be feared. He was a cherished companion. In the terrified moments between the last breath and the first step into the duat, he was the comforting embrace, the benevolent guardian who held your hand when the lights went out. In the temples, the air would grow thick with the sweet scent of incense, a fragrant invitation for the divine, as priests donned the terrifying mask of the jackal to reenact the preservation of the soul. He was the bridge connecting the known to the unknown, the only thing standing between the soul and total oblivion. This brings us to the haunting realization that changes everything. We spend our lives running from Anubis. We sanitize death, we hide from the end, and we view the jackal as the monster at the end of the book. But the irony is that Anubis, the god of death, is the only deity in the Egyptian pantheon who consistently fought for life. He stitched Osiris back together to cheat assassination. He hunted for 7 years to revive his brother when all hope was lost. He is not the eraser of existence, he is the preservation of it. The monster we fear is actually the only one ensuring we survive the transition. This mirrors our own modern struggle. We cling to toxic jobs, dead relationships, and failing dreams because we fear the death of what we know. We are like the queen, cutting down trees to keep the furniture of our lives intact, terrified of the splinter that brings the truth. But Anubis teaches us that only by facing the end can we actually begin again. So here is the binary choice that will define your next chapter. Do you choose to be the queen, clinging to a comfortable lie that is slowly rotting from the inside? Or do you choose to be Anubis, brave enough to walk into the darkness, face the silence, and weigh your heart against the feather of truth? The safe lie offers you sleep. The dangerous truth offers you immortality. Choose wisely. If you want to survive the next descent into the unknown, you know what to do. Click that button. The scales are waiting.